Good afternoon and welcome to the Mesa City Council meeting for October the 16th of 2023. Downstairs we pointed out that a lot of us are wearing purple today. That's not an accident. That they were wearing purple tonight because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. In the United States, an average of 24 people per minute experience stalking or physical abuse by an intimate partner. That's more than 12 million people a year. We are wearing purple to show those impacted by domestic violence that they are not alone. I'll be presenting a domestic violence awareness proclamation later in this meeting, and staff will provide information about an upcoming community event that will be held later this week. We'll now begin our meeting, and I will note that all of our council are present. We will begin our meeting with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd invite you to please stand for a moment of silence followed by the pledge. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We'll invite Ms. Lily King to come forward to read the consent agenda.
Mayor and council members, these are the items on the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk will be considered as a group by the City Council and will be enacted on with one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless a council member or citizen requests, in which the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. Item 2, approval of minutes of previous meetings as written. Item 3A, act on liquor license application for Fairway Market, 340 West Brown Road. Item 3B, act on liquor license application for 180th Field Artillery Regiment Association 2-day event, November 10th and 11th, 4815 East Main Street. Item 3C, act on liquor license application for Ultimate Imaginations 2-day event, November 3rd and 4th at the north, east, and west corners of West Pepper Place and McDonald. Item 3D, act on liquor license application for Oregano's Pizza Bistro, 1130 South Dobson Road. Item 3E has been withdrawn by the applicant. Item 3F, act on liquor license application for J&M2 Chinese Restaurant, 1035 North Ellsworth Road. Item 4A, approve contract for Central Mesa Sewer Inceptor Construction Manager at Risk, guaranteed maximum price. Item 4B, approve using the cooperative contract for the purchase of one heavy-duty backhoe loader for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4C, approving cooperative contract use for the 4-year term contract and 3 years of renewal options for stadium lighting, lighting control systems, and sports video broadcasting equipment for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4D, approving use of cooperative contract for the purchase of 2 heavy-duty trailers for the Transportation Department. Item 4E, approving contract to purchase broadcast and audio-video equipment for the City Council chambers as requested by the Public Information and Communications Department. Item 4F was withdrawn by the applicant. Item 4G, approving a 3-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for utility locating services for the Energy Resources Department. Item 4H, approving dollar limit increase to the term contract for uninterruptible power supply maintenance, repairs, related services, equipment, and parts purchased for various city facilities. Item 4I, approving resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an addendum to the employment contract with the city clerk. Item 4J, approving resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an addendum to the employment contract with the city auditor. Item 4K, approving resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an addendum to the employment contract with the city attorney. Item 4L, approving resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an addendum to the employment contract with the city manager. Item 5A, approving resolution to enter into intergovernmental agreement with the City of Phoenix and Maricopa County for the distribution of grant funds from the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. Item 5B, approving resolution to enter into agreement with Meta to accept a contribution that will be used for naming rights within the IDEA Museum for the new IDEA Lab by Meta to be constructed and to expand free admission to underserved families in Mesa. Item 5C, approving resolution to accept, expend, and distribute grant funds from the federal HUD Continuum of Care Shelter Plus Care Grant to provide rental assistance and related administrative services in partnership with Save the Family. Item 5D, approving resolution to enter into a subrecipient agreement with a new LEAF for a grant of coronavirus local resource and recovery funds for the East Valley Men's Center Bridge Housing Project. Item 5E, approving resolution to enter into the Seventh Amendment to the development agreement for the grid, generally located in the southwest corner of Main Street and Pomeroy. Item 5F, approving resolution authorizing the issuance of sale of general bond obligations series 2023. Item 5G, approving resolution authorizing the sale, execution, delivery of utility systems revenue obligations series 2023. Item 6A, introduction of ordinance for zoning case 23-469 for property generally located west of Power Road on the south side of Main Street, rezone with a bonus intensity overlay, council use permit, and site plan review to allow for change in a use from a hotel to social service facility. Item 6B, introduction of ordinance for zoning case 23-140 for property generally located south of Main Street and west of Ellsworth Road, rezone with a planned area development overlay and site plan review to allow for a multiple residence development. Item 7A, approving ordinance proposing amendments to chapters 5, 6, 7, 8, 31, 58, 86, and 87 of Title 11, zoning ordinance of the Mesa City Code pertaining to drive-through facilities, pickup window facilities, and drive-up ATM teller windows. Item 7B, approving ordinance proposing amendments to chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 30, 31, 33, 86, and 87 of Title 11, zoning ordinance of the Mesa City Code pertaining to land use development standards and other issues. Item 7C, approving ordinance proposing amendments to chapter 69 of Title 11, zoning ordinance of the Mesa City Code pertaining to site plan review. Item 7D, approving ordinance regarding zoning case 23-355 for property located east of Signal Butte Road on the north side of Guadalupe Road. Item 8A, approving subdivision plat Commerce Court East condominiums for property located west of Ellsworth Road on the south side of Southern Avenue. And item 8B, approving subdivision plat Falcon Field Executive Hangars Leasehold Condominiums, a condominium plat located north of McKillop Road and west of Higley Road. Mayor and council members, these are the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. King. Well done. I did note that 7A, Mr. Brady, there were a few that needed to come off per council.
Also went Lily to, or Mary.
Could you just read into the record to be sure?
3G for a liquor license for Commander of Air Force. It's a one-day event. And also there was an addition, 9A. It's a bingo application for ET Consulting, doing business as Palma Soul Community for the bingo application for 9A. Just to
So what you're
clarify
saying, Mr. Smith, is those need to come off of the consent agenda?
No, those,
Just, we make sure they were read.
we just want to make sure they were read into.
Okay, and they were. So
They just were.
3G and 9A are on the consent agenda. 7A, which was read, needs to be taken off the consent agenda
Correct.
because we have several cards
Okay.
to speak.
All right.
Okay, so 7A is off, 3G and 9A are on. Everybody, are we good?
Yeah, we just wanted to read them into the record, make sure they get read in the record. Thank you.
Very much. We have a motion for approval by Councilmember Spilsbury, seconded by by Mr. Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Spilsbury. Please vote. Thank you. The consent agenda passes unanimously. I mentioned at the outset of this meeting that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so before we go any further, I would like to invite someone forward to tell us a little bit more about that. Again, during this month, we reaffirm our dedication to building a community where no one suffers the hurt and hardship that domestic violence causes, and recommit to upholding the basic human rights to be free from violence and abuse. Here tonight to share more about Domestic Violence Awareness Month is City of Mesa Victim Services Administrators Lindsay Kircher and Shelley Ward. Ladies, we'd invite you forward, please. Now, I will note that typically we take a big photo after this, but we took a big photo right before this, so we're not going to recreate that photo, but I am very proud by virtue of the authority as mayor to issue this proclamation. And ladies, tell us why this is an important issue.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Giles and council members. The Mesa Prosecutor's Office, Mesa Police Department, and Mesa Family Advocacy Center are hosting our 6th annual Domestic Violence Awareness event this Thursday, October 19th at 5:30 at the Plaza at Mesa City Center. This event will bring together citizens, survivors, advocates, community organizers, and city leaders to discuss the impact of domestic violence on our community and what we can all do to create change. Our keynote speaker, Ms. Shantae Salisbury, founder of Janice's Women's Center, will share her story of surviving domestic violence and her incredible work running a nonprofit organization supporting other survivors. Victim advocates and representatives from more than 20 community agencies will be on hand to provide free information, resources, and support. Again, our event is Thursday, October 19th at 5:30 at the Plaza at Mesa City Center.
Domestic violence thrives in silence. As a community, we have the power to raise our voices and change the narrative about domestic violence, to speak openly about what it is and who it hurts. Let's be clear, domestic violence is systematic abuse perpetrated through power and control of the most intimate and vital aspects of a victim's life, affecting their physical, financial, social, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And it can happen to anyone, regardless of age, race, gender, orientation, education, or economic status. In 2022, Arizona had one of the highest rates of domestic violence deaths in the U.S., with a loss of 101 victims, 6 of whom were children. It's time to end domestic violence in Arizona, and that can only be achieved by working together. Mayor Giles and council members, this is why your support for this event and Domestic Violence Awareness Month is so valuable. Your support tells the community, we stand behind victims and survivors. We see you, we hear you, and we're here to help. Together as a community, we can create change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. And I will get this proclamation to you post-haste. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, moving forward with our agenda for the rest of this meeting, the first item that came off the consent agenda was item 7A. This is to discuss, receive comment, and take action on an ordinance proposing amendments to the Mesa City Code pertaining to drive-through facilities, pickup window facilities, and drive-up ATM teller windows. We have several blue cards to speak on this item. We'll do the blue cards first, and then I'll ask for staff presentations and then council discussion. First, I have cards from several people that are at the meeting that want to express their opinion, but they do not want to come up to the podium and speak. So I will just, for the record, note that they are here and whether they all oppose the action. So we'll just say that up front. First is Andrew Call is present, and he opposes moving forward. Brian Lamond, likewise. Alan Tom Grace, Tim O'Kane, William Finch, and Joan Kruger, and Rob Bassett. Holly, I believe, do we have anyone, someone requested to appear telephonically, is that right?
We had a request, but he has not called in.
Okay, great. We'll now then go to the blue cards for people that are present and have requested to speak. First card is from Mary Grace McNair, but Ms. McNair, I know you wanted to give your time to someone else. We don't do that. But thank you. You're welcome to come up and speak if you'd like to. All right, thank you very much. Well, first hear then from Paul Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. I'm sure you could speak for this on this for a long time, but we are going to limit. We have a large stack, and we're going to limit each speaker to 3 minutes.
All right, I'll need to move with dispatch. I must say, it was with some duress I got Mary Grace to give me her time, so I'm somewhat chagrined I won't have that opportunity. For your record, my name is Paul Gilbert, 701 North 44th Street in Phoenix. I preface my comments this evening by noting that staff has made some important changes to this ordinance. We want you to know we are cognizant of that and appreciative that they have done that. They have been very open. We've had a lot of meetings, and some of the changes that I think are particularly commendable is we like the emphasis on design standards. There was a legitimate concern with the numerical limits on drive-throughs at intersections. Those limits have been removed. Thank you. It's a great step forward. Also, the prohibition against new drive-throughs in the neighborhood commercial was very concerning. That's been removed. And no longer are you requiring a CUP for the limited commercial district. All those, and I could name several more. So thank you. They are very well taken, and we don't want to be ungrateful for those changes. However, we do have a few things that we would like to share with you. Because of the time limit, I'm going to make this shorter than I otherwise would like to, and that is your P&Z board has not given you a recommendation except non-pass. But substantively, you haven't heard from the P&Z board. I think you should. Mayor, you will say to me, hey, we had a vote on this, it lost 4-3, but maybe you will commend me for my tenacity by bringing it up again. We think it needs to go back to the Planning Commission. That's the right thing to do. The P&Z should be able to clarify the requirements in the queuing study. One member of the P&Z said, look, I have 6 changes I want to make. I was there at that meeting, and it was not a meeting where changes could be made. The members of your Planning and Zoning Board wanted to suggest changes, but they didn't have them written out in a form that would be in good, proper order, and I think they were hoping they could convey those changes, give it to the staff, and then have the staff come back. They weren't given that opportunity. You should give them the opportunity, in my opinion, to do that. Next, we oppose this ordinance because we don't think you should require a queuing study in every single case. Staff has previously proposed amendments following its discussion with the P&Z board and recommended should only be required if you want to vary the terms of the ordinance. We agree with that. Much more could and should be said on that, but I'll move on.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. That's your 3 minutes.
Okay, this is painful. Could I have one more minute, Mayor?
I'm sorry you can't. Thank you.
All right, well, I may get Mary Grace back up here. Would that be all right?
Yes, it would.
All right.
Absolutely.
Or may I defer to her to finish my presentation?
Absolutely. Do you want her to do that right now?
That would be precipitous. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Here's where I am.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members.
We're
It's
starting
really
a new
nice to
3-minute clock. Thank you.
Sure. It's nice to see you all again. Another reason is that we don't think the city should be regulating in the industrial districts so heavily. These amendments will require a CUP where none was required before, where the use was permitted without a special permit. We suggest that the CUP should only be required in industrial districts that are adjacent to a residential zone. Industrial drive-throughs don't need buffering from other commercial uses or industrial uses. And also, employees need access to food from quick service restaurants that are close by. Frankly, this part of the conversation really highlights the redundancy of the ordinance amendments that require a CUP and also require you to comply with design standards. So I guess I wonder in these districts, what is the city council going to be evaluating? What are the criteria they're going to be using? The criteria for the CUP, which is also the criteria that are spoken to by the queuing study that the ordinance is now requiring. So that's why I say it's redundant. And then I wanted to talk for 1 minute about the waiver process in Section 9. We don't think it cures the problems that we've been discussing. The ordinance allows the landowner to apply for a waiver within 3 years of the effective date. If the waiver is granted, it only applies to the use tables. It doesn't apply to the design standards. So the most difficult requirement for a developer in this ordinance will still be required, and that's the queuing study. We will still be required, the waiver doesn't give us any relief from that. If the waiver of enforcement is granted, then the landowner will apparently have waived his or her rights under Proposition 207. I guess it'll be yet to be determined whether a Proposition 207 claim can still be brought for the design standards. If a landowner never seeks the waiver or is denied a waiver, although it says it's non-discretionary, the landowner's Proposition 207 rights could also be extinguished. So the waiver isn't much help to a developer who wants to maintain the status quo on his land. So in summary, we know that the city wants to move this project forward, but we think the content of it requires some more review and input, and so that's why we're asking to move it back to the P&Z. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Ms. McNair. Next is Alyssa Lyons.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you very much. I wanted to say congratulations on your graduation. I'm also a graduate, and it's a wonderful program. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. My name is Alyssa Lyons, and I'm here on behalf of Valley Partnership. I'm proud to say that Valley Partnership has a long history of investment in Mesa. Every year, we select a nonprofit throughout the Valley, and we bring together resources, and we make investments in infrastructure in partnership with nonprofits. Hundreds of people come together on the culmination of that event every year. We pick up shovels and paintbrushes and put on the final touches. The past few years, 2 of those have been in Mesa. The first was Sunshine Acres, and the most recent one was the House of Refuge. The mayor, I'm sure, remembers that well. In fact, he brought the youth committee with them, rolled up their sleeves, and before we even knew it, they were ready to go. So they served their day of service alongside of us, and we were very grateful for that. This December, we are in fact again doing another project here in Mesa. We're going to be partnering with a new Leafs East Valley Men's Center and bringing in the common areas a more pleasant environment for the men who have to temporarily live there due to their personal circumstances. So we're very pleased to be doing that. So with that said, it is with great respect that I come to you to express concern that we have about the current proposal at hand. I had the opportunity to speak with Mary this morning. In fact, she took 2 of my phone calls, so she was very patient with me this morning. So I could ask some questions about what the intent was of certain activities. There are 2 topics I'd like to discuss, please. The first is the stacking study. We absolutely agree that if the design guidelines for the drive-through use are going to be deviated from, that the city absolutely needs to have some kind of justification for that deviation, and that would come in the form of a stacking study. However, for other situations that meet the rule, we believe that the stacking study is an overabundance of regulation and shouldn't be included. Secondly, we had a good discussion about what was referred to as the waiver. What my sense is that that's a document that's intended to create a grandfathering situation for landowners. The current vehicle for that, though, is the Prop 207 waiver, and I would suggest that the council has the opportunity to perhaps choose a different vehicle, create an application that simply does grandfather the opportunity in. That's done in other cities at times to be able to do grandfathering, and that you could move forward in that way. However, because those are still up in the air, the queuing study has a lot of questions associated with it, and the waiver, just to name 2, we do recommend that you send this back to P&Z, and we would be happy to continue to work in it at that level. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons, and in all sincerity, thank you for Valley Partnership doing a great job on those service projects, and we're very excited that you're coming back again this year. Please accept our thanks for that.
Thank you. It's our honor.
Thank you. Jeff Welker.
Mayor Giles, members of the council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this tonight with you, albeit for 3 minutes. I wholeheartedly agree with the speakers who preceded me and the items that they brought to your attention, and there's really no reason for me to reiterate them again. other than I'd like to note that the folks I work with and assist usually are working with existing older retail and commercial centers in the city of Mesa, and the application of these requirements, whether they're the design standards or the use limitations, are an extra burden on these centers that are already struggling. As you know, with the advent and success of online retailing and COVID and the effects it had on retailing, the folks that have these centers are struggling to find and redefine and readapt their commercial uses to find folks that will come. And quite often, where it may not be a big deal in some centers, a drive-through use is a big deal in a lot of these centers. And these are centers that are sometimes 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that never conceived of some of the standards and requirements that are contemplated in the ordinance as proposed. We've talked with staff and appreciate their hard work they've done thus far, but we would like to suggest another reason to send it back to the Planning and Zoning Board to work on is to work on how those issues on existing properties are specifically addressed so that they can continue to try to thrive and survive in the ever-changing world that they live in compared to brand new developments. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welker. Jennifer Hill.
Thank you. I apologize for showing up like this. So speaking of domestic abuse, my son, I had to do a midnight move at GCU and I'm just leaving the dorm. So sorry I'm appearing like this. I'm Jennifer Hill. I'm with GCU Commercial Advisors. I'm a broker in the Valley and I'm a resident in Mesa. I'm also on the Housing and Community Development Advisory Board for City of Mesa. Just recently, I had the privilege to be at a luncheon where Steve Kutry, who is the president of the Arizona Restaurant Association, he had mentioned that drive-through sales averaged about 5% of restaurant sales pre-COVID. And after COVID, obviously, it went through the roof and averaged about 23%. In a convenience-based society, this isn't going anywhere. Our families, for the first time actually last year, restaurant sales outperformed grocery sales by 19%. And in 2023, we're at 23%. I've read some of what is suggested by this ordinance, and it seems like it's just more and more layers that's making it increasingly difficult for these developers and these landowners and these property owners that want to redevelop their sites to bring something to market. I know that in past discussions, it was suggested that by limiting drive-throughs, we would increase the opportunities for sit-down restaurants. As a commercial real estate broker for more than 20 years, I can promise you that is not an accurate statement. So I just, one of the other suggestions in this was the noise levels, trying to keep it at 60 decibels. 60 decibels is about the noise of a conversation. 30 decibels is a whisper. An electric toothbrush is 60 decibels. So I think one of my predecessors, and they've covered most of the reasons I was going to get up and say something in the first place, but especially in the industrial areas, it doesn't make sense to add these restrictions. I figured I was up. Okay. At this point, I guess they've covered everything and just wanted to throw my 2 cents in, and thank you for your time.
Jennifer, thank you for being here and thank you for your service on the Housing Board. Appreciate it. Carol Harder.
Carol Harder, 1515 East Bethany Home Road, and thank you again to everybody for tonight. And to reiterate what several people have said, everything that staff has done, they have listened. We've had many meetings. It's encouraging to see how much we were able to get past. What I did want to share with you as a shopping center owner with centers in the city of Mesa that are 40 and 50 years old, we're incredibly committed to the city. Our first shopping center was bought here almost 30 years ago. What happens when you have even if we're talking design standards, and we're already hearing it from fast food users, they're hearing that it's going to take more time and it's going to be more expensive to do projects in the city of Mesa. And so that's the one thing that we haven't talked about is it's a challenge right now to do deals. As probably many people know, the amount of money that it costs to build a building, construction costs, all of that has made it incredibly difficult. We're still doing it. Anything that adds time, anything that adds money, and the tenants go elsewhere. So I would ask that for consideration. I think with what we heard when we sat in with planning and zoning, they understand that. They have some thoughts, they have some suggestions, and they just need a little bit more time. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Carol. The last card I have is from Robert Mayhew.
And Mayor, just real quick, I was informed that Joan Kruger did want to speak. I don't know if we read her as not wanting to speak.
Did I
so-
misread that? Did I say she didn't?
Yes.
Someone changed my mind for me.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, we'd love to hear from you, Joan.
All right.
You'll be next.
thank you.
Go
Hi.
ahead, sir.
Robert Mayhew with Diversified Partners. We have a number of projects in the city of Mesa and continue to build brand new. And I echo some of the people before me that it's getting very expensive and difficult and time consuming and very difficult to finance. And post-COVID, the world has changed in terms of retail, particularly. The internet started it, and post-COVID has shifted even further. Even full-service restaurants now are moving more towards a limited service, if you will, opportunity for delivery, basically based on the dining room size and the fact that it's hard to staff it with adequate people these days. It's very tough to get employees that want to work, which is an oxymoron in a lot of ways. But I understand the goals of what the council has and P&Z has in terms of the staff has in terms of trying to make placemaking strong and not letting the car interrupt a pedestrian experience and having patios and all the kind of good things that make placemaking and people gathering spots critical. But I think if you look at it, the automobile can help in that way, and it doesn't have to be a hindrance. It can actually be an opportunity to break down building sizes, to put queuing areas and so forth out of the path of sight, out of the pedestrian areas, and still make it viable for those restaurateurs now that are frequently depending on that now for sales going forward. So I don't want you to throw out the baby out with the bathwater. I think it does need to be vetted a little bit further. I think not having P&Z behind you seems a little bit peculiar to me as an individual. And happy to continue to work forward with it. I know a lot of people put a lot of time and effort, a lot more than I have, into this, but I do think it's a big issue that you're tackling. And even though you think it's small in some respects, it has a ripple effect through the industry and to the entrepreneurs we want to attract in the city. So I appreciate your candor and attention.
Thank you very much. Joan Kruger.
Good evening. I'm all the way down here. Excuse me. Good morning, good evening, and I am here representing the Mesa Chamber. And really, I think you've seen some communication from us over the last few days, and we simply wanted to say that when it all boils down to it, that our biggest concern was simply the time that a CUP would take for our developers and our business owners, and frankly for you and for staff. And so we think that that was the one piece that we could object to in your ordinance this evening, and we appreciate very much your time and attention.
Thank you, Joan. All right, council. Well, do we still not have oh, yes, I'm sorry.
It's up to you, Mayor. We don't have to do that. It's essentially.
We have had, for those watching at home, we've had multiple staff presentations on this. So I suspect that we will invite you, we're going to ask you some questions probably based on some of the comments that have been made already. So rather than you guess what we want to talk about, why don't you let us ask you that? Council, I know we've got discussion. Who would like to kick this off? Yes, go ahead. Let's begin with Councilmember Grace.
I just have a question. So I know I watched 2 times that this topic went to P&Z. Mary, do you know off the top of your head how many times you presented to P&Z?
Mayor, Councilmember Goforth. So we've had 3 study sessions with planning and zoning prior to the hearing where we had a study session before where we had the recommendation.
Okay, so maybe a total of four. Four
Four total,
times you've
yes.
presented to P&Z on this topic.
Yes,
Okay.
and we came back to them 2 weeks before this last hearing for a study session.
Thank you. Mr. Summers?
Mary, I'll just ask the question because it's been brought up a few times. So the council use permit, that's going to be for limited industrial, general industrial, and then where else? And then how does that compare to other cities and what the cities in the East Valley particularly and what's required there?
Mayor Giles, Council, as we had shown you in the slides earlier today, several of the jurisdictions that we benchmarked against actually do not allow drive-throughs in them in their industrial areas. The council use permit would be required in the ordinance in the planned employment park, general industrial, light industrial, heavy industrial, and the neighborhood commercial. We can pull up that slide if you'd like to see the comparison of what other jurisdictions do.
I think Channel 11's beat you to it. They're showing that right now. Very good. And then the stacking study that we're requiring, would you discuss briefly what's the difference between a stacking study and a traffic impact study? And again, the question is, how is this comparing with the communities that are around us?
So Mayor Giles, council members, we actually initially had come to council with the recommendation of a traffic impact study, which is a much more onerous study. And we've actually got somebody here from Public Works who can speak to what exactly goes into that. As we listen to the stakeholders, as we listen to the Planning and Zoning Board at the study session, because of the expense associated with something like that, because it is an onerous requirement, we kind of scaled back to the on-site circulation and stacking study to really look at what is going on site in terms of queuing areas, in terms of how the cars would ingress and egress, and to look at the cumulative impacts within a quarter mile of other developments within that quarter mile to make sure that cars would not start queuing onto the roads that would surround the drive-through. So we pulled it way back from the traffic impact study that was the initial recommendation. And if you want to know what goes into that, we do have somebody from Public Works here who can speak to that.
I heard the word onerous, and suffice it to say, I think that process is far more detailed and expensive than what would be a stacking study, which is required in other communities. I think everybody's going to have their 5 minutes of comments to come up, so I'm going to allow some of the other council members to ask specific questions, and then I'll come back with some comments after Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Summers.
Thank you, Mary.
Who would like to go next? Mr. Redia.
Along with the planning and zoning, how many, do we have community meetings as well? Rachel or Mary, how many community meetings did we have?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor Heredia. So we had 6 public meetings. We had 10 focus groups or small discussions with individuals or organizations. We've had 5 study sessions with council. And then as described, we had the 3 study sessions with P&Z prior to this last study session and hearing. So throughout that, we think that we've engaged with around 180 residents through that process.
Thank you.
Councilmember Duff.
Yes, I'll just go ahead and go. I've been on the fence about this project as it's gone through so many iterations over the last couple of years. And I did prepare a statement. I put a lot of thought into this, and I've been back and forth. But this is my thought process, and I just wanted to put it out there since it's been such a long process. You know, drive-through restaurants did very well during COVID, as Ms. Hill had said, and they're really investing in their expansion right now. And they're ideally situated on auto-centric arterial roads. And Mesa is perfect for drive-throughs because we have so many arterial roads and very few what I call streets, safe and attractive places for people to walk and bike. If we want options in our city, I believe we have to pair our roads with our land use in our general plan and be consistent with what we're trying to achieve, whether to quickly move cars or be a people place. Right now, they don't match. We have high-speed roads separate or are next to neighborhoods and neighborhood commercial, so that the only way you feel safe going to the corner store is in the car. Our planning department has done an excellent job listening to all the stakeholders and have done their very best to make everyone happy. I agree, it's been a very difficult job. And as I stated, I've been on the fence, but after careful study and consideration, I am going to approve this ordinance. Going forward, I leave us with the challenge of creating options in our city, creating people-centric places connected to safe and attractive streets for walking and biking. Until we create people-centric areas in our city, we are left with a rat maze of arterials with few reasons to get out of our car. So anyway, I approve the ordinance. I did drill planning about if it was onerous and everything, and looked at other cities, and I think we're good to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Duff. Council, other discussion?
I'll jump in. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank staff for your countless hours and dedication to this, because it's been kind of difficult. And I know, having attended most of the meetings that you've attended, and there's been some unfair comments made in front of this ordinance change, and much of it's all been unwarranted. So I think it's time. We've had our feedback here from our various parties, and I didn't initially see a problem with the process that we have. Mainly because I think in District 1, it's mostly infilled, and likely most of it's zoned already for drive-throughs, and if not, except for a few exceptions, I believe that it can be managed by staff in the design review guidelines, along with the SUP if it's required. I know the growth in Southeast Mesa has created this, not an issue, but a discussion point. And as a council, we must look at the entire city and see what's best and work out our differences the best we can. So I've had discussions with my constituents in the area, and most of them will say, well, the consensus was we don't want traditional drive-throughs. And I said, well, what's traditional? And so they've expressed their opinion. And I'll leave it up to you, what that means. But I'm of the opinion that I'm not convinced we also need the traffic information. I believe that this could be obtained through the design review guidelines and updates. And I'm also unsure about the council use permit. It seems like we've discussed a political hurdle, and I have complete confidence in our staff ability to resolve these issues with our current process we have without needing a CUP, regardless of the zoning district. I'm really uneasy about the 3-year waiver process. I'm unsure if legal disputes will cease if a property wasn't registered within 3 years and what repercussions that might be. This could potentially create more work for our staff, and it also could suggest that the city might not be business friendly. And it's my understanding that no other cities require the waiver, but that might differ. But I believe that the design standards would still apply towards this purpose. I'm all in favor of creating a safe work environment for the employees through the screen walls, the design, the safety measures, and other elements, but I think this can also be done by the design review processes. This will ensure a positive experience for both the employees and customers and show that our city planning staff and future submittals must maintain standards. So again, I'm not supporting a CUP for all the zoning districts, and I feel it should be excluded from those that have been discussed. But if we cannot send this back to the P&Z zoning, a compromise should be made by removing this requirement. And I suspect the development committee wouldn't object to the remaining changes on the design review guidelines, and that we'd have closure with this whole process. So that's my comments right now. I had to read it because I don't want to be distracted and be focused on this part. So if it's presented the way it is, I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. Pillsbury.
Well, I have beat this to a pulp, so I'm going to make my comments brief. But I do want to, again, express my appreciation to not just our incredible staff, but also our community members that have been involved in these conversations. And I asked for a lot of that conversation to be had and to make sure that our development community had a voice. And I think that you did have a voice, although the way I look at it, when I talk to the development community, which I do a lot, I think there's a lot of developers who really genuinely care about Mesa and the future of Mesa. And they're not just trying to make money. And not that money doesn't have anything to do with this, but I know that there are a lot of people that grew up in Mesa, that care about Mesa, that want to see it take off, keep taking off in a great direction. And they're willing to put their time, their money, their resources into developments in our city. And I think that we are overstepping as a council when we make onerous ordinances like this, although I know there's a disagreement of whether it is. But I feel that it is. I also want to thank our planning and zoning staff again for their expertise and opinion. And I cannot comfortably move forward and feel good about going against their recommendation. I do think this has some really good stuff in it, but it's not ready. It's just not. It's not. When you talk to anyone that's in the know, they'll tell you, as you've heard already in this meeting, that it's not where it needs to be. And so I cannot vote yes on this in its current form.
Thank you. Mr. Summers?
For crying out loud. All right, so I beat this dead horse, and I'm going to beat it some more. First of all, I appreciate everybody who showed up today. It's a lot of the development community, and we've heard quite a bit from you, but what I'm hearing a lot from and what I respond to are the people who put me into office, right? And there's been a growing concern, as was mentioned, particularly in Southeast Mesa, about how things are growing, how they've been negatively impacted by things like COVID and the COVID economy. And so when I listened to the comments that went here, it was interesting because, you know, some folks, if we could just get rid of the CUP. If we get rid of the CUP process, then we'd be okay with it. But the problem is that the CUP process is trying to, let me give you a different angle, right? So the angle is this. Other cities in the Southeast Valley prohibit any type of drive-through in industrial zoning and neighborhood commercial. But we're not entirely saying that. We're saying we're going to give you an avenue, the CUP, as much as some people don't like that, to come to the council and say, hey, I'm down here on Germain, and I think there's an opportunity to do some restaurants down here for the industrial development. Make your case to this council and let us decide if this is the direction we want to go, because it might be appropriate. Other cities don't even give you that opportunity. But then there's the stacking study that everybody's concerned about. Well, a certain group. So you have the CUP group, and then another group comes up and say, well, we don't like the stacking study. The CUP's fine, but the stacking studies, we should just do a design standard. But the stacking study is a problem. We've had several developments in Southeast Mesa that have recently gone up where that's just pouring traffic out on the street. There's a Starbucks over at Point 22. Every morning it's really successful, and unfortunately that success means that it's pouring out onto Point 22 Boulevard and creating traffic hazards. I just had dinner the other day, or lunch, excuse me, the other day, at a sit-down restaurant that happens to have at least 3 drive-throughs in front of it at Ellsworth and Ray Road, and I could hardly get into a parking space for all the drive-through traffic that was backing up. That's what a traffic study, a stacking study, excuse me, is supposed to help prevent. So by having a stacking study, which, let's face it, you know, most of these McDonald's aren't going to go broke, right? These national chains aren't going to go broke for doing a stacking study. They're pretty much doing them anyway, but staff doesn't get to see them and then look at them in a holistic picture. So adding the stacking study is just about providing safety for the people who live and patronize the businesses that are here. And then we had some people say, well, let's just do this on a design standard. But then we heard somebody complain that, well, the design standards are going to be a negative impact for redevelopment. Well, the redevelopment areas largely are in the general commercial. They still will have their rights. And I think you're right. I think we have to be concerned about how we facilitate better redevelopment on some of those older malls. So maybe looking at this in a year, we can go back through planning and zoning a year and see what the impacts are in the future. But at the end of the day, this all comes down to this. What kind of Mesa do we want to be in? Mesa deserves good design standards. The same as Gilbert, the same as Queen Creek, the same as Scottsdale, the same as Tempe. That is what we're asking for. Better design standards, better development, responding to the community. We have one development that's coming near the Eastmark community. It's piling in 11 drive-throughs. And yet my constituents are clamoring for diversity in the options that they have for dining and entertainment. Not a ban, not a ban, diversity of opportunity. Maybe this will work, maybe it won't. But this, I think, will give us the opportunity to create those neighborhoods, particularly in neighborhood commercial, where we're trying to create the livable, walkable spaces, and an industrial zone that, quite frankly, is for development of advanced manufacturing and creating of jobs, not the proliferation of fast food restaurants. So with that, Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Mayor, did you want to let that gentleman speak?
Well, yes, I'll
At
get
the
to
end?
that. Thank you.
Okay, just
but
checking.
Since a motion's been made, I'm going to call for a second now as well. All right, thank you, Mr. Heredia. We did have a stack of cards, and there was an individual, there were a couple of individuals that initially said they didn't want to speak, and they changed their mind. And in the spirit of fairness, we have had another individual say that he wants to do that, so I'm going to allow him to change his request to speak.
Well, I actually filled the card out wrong, Mr. Johnny Giles. Honorable Mayor.
I'm sorry,
and
wait. You said what?
I said filled the card out wrong.
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr.
Honorable
Trump. You have
Mayor
3 minutes.
and Honorable Council, and especially Mrs. Bilderberg, Mr. Freeman. I've been stressed out over this. I almost got a stroke the last 5 months. You know, my family, we're one of the oldest Chinese families in Mesa. We did everything right. Tried to get a good reputation. We got all the properties zoned properly. And waiting for this moment in time. I lost my dad 15 years ago. Wish he would see what's going on. And we have a problem. I got so many things to say. I got 3 minutes, so I'm going to go fast forward as fast as I can. You know, we have a northwest east corner. We own a power on Ellsworth Road University. It's only 330 feet depth, north and south, and 600 feet on University. We had that for 60 years. And our neighbor across the street, the southwest corner, is about the same size, a little bit bigger piece of property. They're going to put a Taco Bell and a Dutch Brothers and his Wendy's over there. You know, why can't I have the same thing? I've been waiting 60 years for it, paid taxes. We got a good reputation in Mesa, you know. On northeast corner, Power Road and Main Street, I plan to put 3 fast food restaurants there, over there. And with a stack requirement, 100 feet setback, I can't do that. And I've heard distinctly from the mayor in several meetings ago, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, you're not going to take the usage or balance this well in a study session, take the usage away from it. With all these requirements there, it is going to take my usage away. The fast food industry did no wrong. I did no wrong. Yes, I'm very emotional about this. Very emotional about this. I'm trying to get the people here and the honorable board and the council member to change their position on this thing. I did do no wrong at all. I paid the taxes, tried to be a good citizen of Mesa, and this handful of disgruntled residents cannot speak in behalf of the 500,000 people that live in Mesa, okay? That's my conjecture where I stand. And also, too, is I have so many things to say. The fast food restaurant business there, they are an economic engine for the city of Mesa over there. For such a little space they put there, they put $2, $3, $4, $5 million in each development. It's not junk development. They provide tens of thousands of jobs for families, for supplementary child income, and for high school and college kids going to school. And also, they collect millions of dollars in sales taxes. Supermarkets don't do that. And also, too, is Mesa collects, each of these restaurants pay an average $20,000 to $50,000, $60,000 a year property tax. Mesa gets 7% of secondary property tax. That's a lot of money. You have to look at it from that point of view, too. Everybody mentions about Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert. I don't care what they do. Look at a city here just east of Mesa here, or your sister city, Apache Junction. They just annexed 6,000 acres of land. They're going to go like wildfire over there. They want every kind of business, economic development they can get over there. They welcome it. Over here, I believe the previous mayor and council said that we welcome development here in Mesa. We be business friendly. What you're doing is being very prejudiced. You're putting a second layer of regulation on fast food. That's not fair. And also, I asked the staff there, there's no way for me, it's not un-American, unjust, it's not due process, just plain un-American. There's no way I can go to a board adjustment or the administrative adjustment if I cannot meet any of these layers of regulation. The queuing, the impact study, and the 100-foot setback, and also the decibel level. There's no avenue. That's un-American in this country over here. And I have a real smart daughter, just one. She's an assistant DA in one of the counties in Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. You're out of time, so you could wrap it up.
I'm going to wrap it up there.
Okay.
She said to me right off the bat when she won that before Arizona Supreme Court, said that this additional regulation is a eminent domain regulatory taker. She snapped her finger over there, protected by the United States Constitution, 5th and 14th Amendment. Sorry to be so emotional, and thank you very much.
No.
And I'm just emotional about it. And I respect everybody here that sits up here, okay? Including the city attorney and the Honorable Mr. Brady here and the staff too.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. I'll share my 2 cents. I think there is a lot of emotion and there's a lot of concern, and we have sensed that as a council. I know that the development community is very, very concerned about this, and that's of concern to us. And I think a lot of the concern, though, is not well-founded because it's based on we've been talking about this for a couple of years now, and this has gone through several iterations. And as Mr. Gilbert pointed out when he stood up there, this has evolved quite a bit. The ordinance that we're voting on tonight does not really resemble what we've talked about in a lot of ways over the last 2 or 3 years. There is no limit on the number of drive-throughs in the city of Mesa. There's not a requirement for onerous traffic studies. There is a requirement for stacking studies in your parking lot. And this ordinance does not, we do not stand out. In fact, this is very middle of the road in comparison to other communities and the burden that's put on development. So again, there's been a lot of good work done by planning and zoning staff. There's been a lot of good work done by the planning and zoning board. And what has come out through that process, I think is an ordinance that's, again, not as scary as people might think it was when it started. This there's 3 issues I think that we need to point out and talk about. Why would we do this? There's 3 issues that we need to talk about. The first is the stacking of traffic, and again, I think we're not requiring the traffic study is onerous and it is expensive, but a stacking study is not. And I think some of the people that have spoken, Mr. Welker and others, Mr. Tom, other folks, you own strip malls and real estate or retail properties in the city of Mesa that are 30, 40, 50 years old. And I think those types of developments in particular would benefit from a stacking study before we shoehorn in a drive-through in a lot of those locations. So I don't think it's onerous. I think it's something that is actually very relevant and will contribute to the safety and to the success of that development. Noise has been raised. Mary, I know that the rule right now is that 60 decibels is the rule that would trigger a noise study if you're within 100 feet of a residential property. But that is, sometimes the ambient noise at that location would exceed 60 decibels. So what is the rule?
So Mayor Giles, council, the way that the noise portion of the ordinance is written is that it would either be 60 decibels, which again is about a normal conversation, or the ambient noise level in that area. So if you're on a highway and there's a lot of traffic and the ambient noise level is say 80 decibels or 100, or I don't want to go to 100, 90 decibels, that whichever one of those is higher, that's what it would have to be at the property line with the residential property. So you can't exceed either the ambient or the 60 decibels.
All right, so I think that acknowledges that 60 decibels might be inappropriately low. And so it will change to correspond to what the actual circumstances are in that intersection. Some have have indicated that they felt the council use permit process is overly burdensome, and it will add workload to this body and to staff and become political, and that's a point well taken. Personally, I appreciate Mr. Summers pointing out that giving folks that own property in certain zoning districts that in many other communities, the answer is don't even ask because the answer is no. We say, no, come to council and plead your case. If you have a compelling argument for why this makes sense in this piece of property, we're not gonna, the answer is not no to begin with. So please come in and we'll talk about it and we'll consider it. So I personally am not turned off by the council use permit opportunity. I think, yeah, it's a little more work, but I think it's pro-business because it allows us to come in and debate and talk about whether or not we want to make exceptions. I've received 2 emails over the weekend from Planning and Zoning Board members who have, and I do want to address the work of the Planning and Zoning Board. But we are very appreciative of the hard work that our staff and our Planning and Zoning Board has put into this. And it is very uncomfortable to go forward with this with a recommendation of denial from the Planning and Zoning Board, albeit they denied because they wanted to spend more time working on it. I think that it's time for us to move forward, but that's not to imply that this is done. I think the delays that are being asked for, the real answer there is, okay, we won't give you a delay till the end of the year, or we'll give you a 3-year delay. This 3-year waiver opportunity allows folks to come in and say, we think this devalues our property, we don't like your new rules, we want the old rules. And you can do that. So I think that is, it's not a small delay, it is a 3-year delay. Now, I've heard some critique from tonight that 3-year delay doesn't relieve you of some of the requirements, like the stacking study, but it does relieve you of the council use permit requirement, which I think is viewed as the onerous portion of this. So again, I think that 3-year waiver, for anybody who feels hurt by what we're doing tonight, please just file for a waiver, and you got 3 years to use the old rules to develop your property. Let me reiterate a message to our Planning and Zoning Board. We need to clear the deck right now on this. We need to move forward. That's not to say that this is a perfect ordinance and it doesn't need to be improved. I'm sure it does. And we are going to ask and invite the Planning and Zoning Board to do that. But we have a very big project ahead of us right now, which is our general plan update. And we need our Planning and Zoning Board to focus on that. We need our staff to focus on that. That's going to take, I think we'll all be obsessed with that for at least the next 6 months. After that, after we get good recommendations from our Planning and Zoning Board, I think I want to invite our Planning and Zoning Board to pick this issue up. And that over the next 6 months or to 12 months from now, that will allow a little bit of experience with this. I'm not sure how many actual, I think we're anticipating that had these rules been in place last year, that would have resulted in a total of 5 additional council use permits over the course of the entire year. So we'll see 6 months or 12 months from now what the impact of these changes has been. If it's significant, if we, and I suspect it's not perfect, but if we need to make some, if we see that there's some inconsistencies or something that's not fair to the business community, then I'm going to invite our Planning and Zoning Board to reassess this after we get their recommendations on our general plan update. And we are never done when it comes to writing ordinances. If we discover that things are not the way they should be, we'll put it on a council agenda and change it, a month later. So, but in the meantime, I think it is time for us to move forward. We've literally been working on this for years. Let's live with it for a little while, and we'll see if improvements need to be made. Yes, Holly.
Mayor Giles, Council.
Yes.
So by setting the timer, kind of reset your motion that you established. So if
Okay.
you don't mind, I'll reset it and ask that Councilmember Summers set your motion. And I believe it was Councilmember Heredia that seconded it.
Thank you. So when it comes up on the screen, we'll ask Mr. Summers and Mr. Reddy to remake their motion. Is the screen open now?
It should be. No, all right, let's try again. Well then.
Do it verbally.
Should we do a voice vote?
Let's do it verbally, yeah.
We
Okay.
broke the machine.
Thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Summers and a second from Mr. Heredia. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Summers, how do you vote? Aye. Ms. Spilsbury?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
Nay.
Thank you. I vote aye. Mr. Heredia?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Duff?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Goforth?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-2. And again, thank you everyone for your engagement. We are not done. Please give us your thoughts on this as we move forward. The next item on our agenda is item 10A. This is a public hearing for annexation case 22-738 for approximately 4.6 acres located on the south side of Main Street west of Crisman Road. I declare the public hearing open. Ms. Mosley, do you have any requests to speak from the public on this item?
Mayor, I have no requests.
You do not.
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Do any council members wish to address this item? All right, thank you. I therefore declare the public hearing closed. There's no action on this item at this meeting. This annexation will come back to the council at a future council meeting. Next item on our agenda for this meeting is items from citizens present. Ms. Mosley, do we have any requests to speak on this agenda item?
We have no request.
Thank you. That concludes the items on our agenda for this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Summers and Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.